In this episode, we are going to be talking about one of the most important things in your business, and that is knowing your values. Every person who works with me, whether they are a life coaching client, a business coaching client, or even joining my mastermind, I always do a values assessment with them first, because without that, I have no idea what's going to trigger them or what their preferences are going to be. And so in this episode, I hope that you not only realize the importance of knowing your values, but also realize all the things you can do once you know them. Welcome to the Breakthrough Mastermind Show. I'm your host, Jen Argue, and I facilitate masterminds for women entrepreneurs who are go-getters and want to not only make a big difference in the world, but want to create more financial independence. Today, we are diving into knowing your values and why that's important. I can't even begin to stress how important it is to know your values. And I need to make a distinction first about your values. Values are not goals. This is often where things get confused. People might say, I value exercise, but is exercise actually something that you value? And you'll be able to tell by how easy it is for you to do. Now, if you just wake up in the morning and can't wait to get out and exercise, 100% you value exercise. But if exercise is something that you're trying to do more of and it's kind of difficult for you, I'm going to guess that it's not a value then, it's probably a goal. And as we talk about why values are so important and the difference it makes in your life, knowing them, this is what it's going to be all about, is knowing how to tell between your values and your goals. So I have a whole workshop on this where I dive deep and I walk people through the process of discovering their values. And that's not something I'm going to do in this podcast, but I'm going to help you still learn some ways that you can use your values once you know them. So it's really important to know your values because your values reveal things about you that help you either know how to make decisions more quickly, know what is tripping you up when you're feeling stuck, and it helps you know how to get back on track. So let's look at values in two different areas. I'm going to start with knowing your values for your personal life first, because you take you with you wherever you go. So I want you to be able to have some confidence and some comfort about knowing yourself as you step into all these different situations in your life. So first of all, when it comes to your personal life, knowing your values is key. And however you go about doing that, if you ever take my workshop someday, or you get a book, or you figure it out somehow, once you get your values figured out, this is going to help you in, number one, making better decisions. So often we have to ask ourselves, what do I want? When you're entering into a decision-making time, asking yourself, what do I want, is really important because that will help you know what decision to make. So for example, let's say, and I've used this example before, so you might be familiar with it, but a lot of entrepreneurs come to me and they say, I want more clients, but they also say, I need more time to rest. Okay, so when you have these two goals that you're trying to meet and they kind of seem conflicting, you have to be really clear in which situation you want which thing. So if you're not clear on that, you could be kind of paralyzed and you kind of could be guessing like, I don't know. I don't know. And then you don't take any action at all, right? Have you ever been there where you're stuck between two big decisions and just on surface level, you don't know what to do and you feel stuck and you're in decision making time. And we all know when we're in an indecision making time, it's an energy drain because we want to be moving in a direction, but we just don't know which direction to go. And the way to find out which direction to go is by asking yourself, for this situation, what do you want? And how does that play into what you want on a broader scale as well? Another example is I'll take my daughter, for example. I just was on a phone call with her today. She's going to be graduating in another month and a half from college. And she's been doing a lot of job interviews to line up a job for when she graduates. And it's really exciting for her in doing these interviews and getting into, deeper interviews like the second and third ones with these companies is really exciting. And it also takes her to a point of decision making. Does she want to work for this company? Does she want to try to negotiate different terms? One of the situations that came up that we talked about today was a company that she really loved, and she wants to work for them and they want her to work for them as well. But the problem is her date when she will be able to start working is later than what they're hiring for right now. So she had a decision to make. Do I reach out back to them and let them know I could step away from the internship that I'm in right now and start working for you on a part-time basis until I'm able to, graduate and then start working on a full-time basis? Or do I just trust that they'll probably be hiring again when I'm ready and then they'll be ready for me, if that works out? So she was in this indecision making stage. And part of her reasoning of how to make this big decision was, what do I want right now? She had to ask herself, what do I want right now? And was the plan that I laid out for myself a plan that I want to stick with? Or do I want to maybe change that plan and do something different? So whatever she decides is what she decides. But those are the types of ways that you approach these decision-making times when you feel kind of stuck and unsure about what to do. This might play into things as well as maybe partnerships that you want to, do. Maybe someone might be approaching you and asking you if you want to do a partnership with them in their business. And maybe it wasn't really on your plan for this quarter. You have the decision to make then. Instead of going, I don't know, you can take a look at what your plan was and what was the why that was driving that plan? What was the value that was being met of yours by doing that plan versus the value of that you might place on doing this partnership? So that will help you decide which value you're going to honor in yourself by deciding whether to partner with them or not. So knowing your values helps you really make decisions more confidently. Second, the other part about knowing your personal values is it helps you figure out why you're stuck. So let's say in your personal life, you're having a hard time with exercise. I'm using exercise, guys, because this is me. Exercise is not a value of mine. I have other values such as relationships, being involved in healthy relationships. Also, one of my values is learning. And so when I talk about being stuck, for me, getting out and exercising is a place where I often feel stuck. I have a lot of resistance in that area. But one way that I have been able to overcome that resistance is by pairing it with one of my values. So if I go out and exercise with a friend, now I can do it. So if we pair up one of our goals that we're having troubles doing because it falls outside of our values, we want to pair it with a value that we have to make it easier to do. Another way I would get out and exercise is if I was learning something. So maybe listening to a podcast or listening to somebody teach a module in their course. I love that. I love learning. And so if I can figure, okay, I can go out and exercise for 45 minutes, and that'll be about the length of this podcast, that would be great. So, that way I'm pairing the two things and achieving success in both areas, which is exciting, right? So think of an area where you feel stuck. Do you feel stuck with maybe getting out that weekly email? Do you feel stuck with making yourself visible online, whether it's writing a blog or doing a podcast or even going live on whatever platform that you enjoy being on and your customers are on? If you have trouble with being visible, maybe there's a way that you can pair it with a value that you already have. So, for example, if relationships is something you value as well, then maybe you could go live with somebody, with a friend or a business partner. Or maybe if it's getting out that weekly email, maybe you could pair it with something else that you love to do. If you love, I'm just picking an idea out of the sky here. If you love, let's say, a television show, like you like humor, let's say, and there's a show that really makes you laugh. Let's say Schitt's Creek, for example. If you've never seen Schitt's Creek, it is so funny. And maybe a way that you can pair your love for the humor in that show with writing emails, you could just weave in some story about that TV show into your email. Or let's say you are a knitter and you love to knit. You could use knitting stories in your emails because it's fun to let your audience know a little bit more about you. And so that's a way to combine your value with an area that you feel a little stuck with to achieve success. So that's one way to help get you unstuck and back on track. So always when we think about getting back on track, it's how can I pair it with my values? So that's the whole personal side of knowing values. Oh, and one more part of that personal side is our relationships. If you're ever feeling stuck in a relationship, if you're feeling distant from somebody, let's say, distant, I think is a good word. It's probably because the two of you are spending too much time outside of your overlapping values. Now, relationships that we have that are really close are typically close because we share our values. It's not necessarily because we both are on the same baseball team or we both take our kids to the same gymnastics studio. It's probably because you have some overlapping value. That might be where you met, but it's probably because you have some kind of overlapping value that really draws you together. And if you're in a partnership or marriage, you definitely have overlapping values with that person. And if you're feeling distant from them, think about your values that are being expressed in a way that are different from each other. They're probably different. And when someone has values that are different from yours that they're showing, it's very easy in your mind to think, I do not get that at all. I do not know what planet they're on or why they're doing that. But yet we can absolutely feel so intimate and close to that person when we're engaged in things that we love to do together. Maybe we love supporting our kids. And so going and doing something where we're supporting our kids, showing up at their games and their practices together, that's fun. Or helping them with a homework assignment, maybe that's fun. Or maybe you both love concerts or adventure. And so adding a little bit more adventure into your life or going to a few more concerts in your life will help draw you close together. Just give it a try. Maybe make a list of the things that you enjoy together with your partner or your best friend and see how much of those things you're doing together. Because I guarantee the more things you do on that list together, the closer you're going to feel and the less distant you're going to feel in that relationship. Okay, moving on to business. I promise you, it's everything when it comes to business. So I was just at a board of directors meeting this past weekend. I just got voted on to the board of directors at this wonderful nonprofit called Door of Hope. Look it up. They're in Pasadena, California. They are doing amazing, amazing work with homeless, potentially homeless families. What they do is they try and keep families out of homelessness, and they are so incredibly effective at it. Okay, so enough about Door of Hope, but I went to the very first board of directors meeting, and they brought in an executive coach from outside of the organization to lead our meeting. It actually was a retreat. So we were there all day, and this executive coach was doing an amazing job. And she has clients, really big clients like GoPro, Southern Methodist University, Blue Cross Blue Shield. So she is lending her time and services to this nonprofit as a way of giving back, which on the side, I highly encourage you to think about how you can give back in your business as well. So I pulled her aside during lunch and I said, what do you see as one of the biggest challenges that businesses have in all your work with all these big organizations? And she said, not firing fast enough. I had to think about that because there's a saying, hire slow, fire fast. And she just said, not firing fast enough. And out of all the things she could have said, I was so surprised that this is what she said. And I know this to be true from all the work that I've done with business owners and even in my own business. But it was interesting that that is what she picked as one of the main things. And as we dove into the conversation, she began to expand on that. And what I love what she said, which I completely agree with, is that it's really important that people who come into your business are aligned with your values. And this is something that I've practiced in my business whenever I've brought on somebody, whether it's even working with a contractor for my team, before I decide to say, yes, let's work together, I'm analyzing in my head if they're going to be aligned with my values. And sometimes I actually just come out and have this conversation. You know, these are things that I value. Do you value this as well? And if we work together, it's going to be really important for me that these values of mine are honored. And hopefully that business owner also knows their values and is doing the same with me. I've actually never had anybody do it with me yet. But I highly encourage you to do it with people that you work with, especially for high stakes jobs. When you're working with somebody, when you're partnering with somebody, or you're hiring somebody to come onto your team, especially then, you want to really confirm that they align with your values. So sometimes you might actually feel stuck with an employee or someone that you're contracting with. And you might think, things are not working out here. This is not going right. Now, there are legal ways to handle firing fast, and you want to make sure that you're handling it in a way that is congruent with your laws and all the proper legal things. But I want you to notice in that situation, which one of your values is not being honored? And is it something that can be remedied with a simple, courageous conversation and maybe some follow-up? Or is this something that actually the person just has values that are too different and are too far beyond reconciling to make it work? This is a situation where you want to fire fast, because that not only helps them and you. I mean, it helps both of you, which is really important that it helps both of you, right? Because they don't want to be in an organization where they're just not a good fit. Maybe it's not that they're in the wrong organization. Maybe they're just in the wrong place in your organization. Maybe they just need to be in a different role in your organization. If that role is available for them, that could be a possible solution as well. But it always comes down to typically a value clash. And when I was talking with this executive coach, she mentioned it gets really sticky when the manager has conflicting values with the company. So it might be that it's higher up and it's affecting the whole team underneath that manager. So making sure that you and your company's goals are, or your values are aligned. It's also important that everybody who works in your organization has aligned values as well. It was so good to talk to you about values today. And like I said, if you are looking for a very effective way to know your values, I have a very low cost mini course on working through your values and discovering them for yourself. You can just reach out to me or look in the show notes for the link. Also, when it comes to values, as you know, one of my values is self-care, to make sure that you are pouring into yourself and your health and your wellness. And one of the ways that I'm doing that with my mastermind is by taking them to a beautiful adults only all-inclusive in Mexico this April. If you are listening to this before April 10th and you want to apply to the mastermind, I would love to meet you. The application will be in the show notes. And if you get into the mastermind, you will have the opportunity to join us in Mexico. So I would love to have you there. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe.